Today we're going to take a look at some ways for exporting your models for either getting rapid prototypes or for the use in other polygonal based applications. So we've got this model we'll use as a test case here, and let's say I want to send this out. I want to get a rapid prototype, so I need to either save it out as an STL file format, or for version 9.0 we've also added the OBJ file format. So the traditional process that most people follow is just to say file save as, and then they pick STL, select save, and I'll go ahead and replace this one. And then you get this dialog box that has all the different options or parameters you can set as far as how that geometry is going to be created for export. I generally don't like this method unless you know exactly the tolerances you need in order to get the model developed finely enough or coarsely enough so it's not going to be too heavy or it's going to not have the quality you want. This is kind of a difficult way to do it. So let me show you the way I prefer to handle these types of situations. So I'm going to hit cancel. If you just select the surface, a better method is to use the poly mesh from NURBS. So I'm going to pick that, and let's say I want to export this part of the geometry. What's nice about this method is it shows you on screen exactly how the surface is being prepared. So you have controls over using either the surface tolerance. So I'm gonna pick on surface tolerance just to show you what that looks like. So obviously with this surface tolerance, I'm actually missing a lot of pieces, and it's a bit rough and coarse. So this obviously would not be a good option. So let's see what it does when I increase the tolerance a little bit. Okay, so not a whole lot there, so let me crank this up even more. So add one more decimal place. So it's looking better in some areas, but you can see I still have problems in some of these rounded fillet areas. So without getting the visual feedback, if you use the original method, you're going to be outputting bad geometry without even knowing it. So the one I usually prefer using the poly mesh from NURBS is to use the same view tessellation that the program is using for your shaded visualization in modeling. So you can see this one is a much nicer surface. There's nothing missing. It's pretty uniform and looks pretty nice. So you can increase your view tessellation by either going to the view detail and picking one of these other options, or in 9.0 we have a new icon in the world browser called visual properties. So you can just select that and you can change it here also. So I'm going to pick maximum, and you'll be able to see real time exactly how the data is being changed. So you can see this is much more fine, a lot more detail, and really a whole lot more uniform. So this is a much nicer piece of geometry to send out. And again, you know exactly what you're going to get. Okay, so that's the easiest process for saving this out. So at this point, if I'm happy with that, I'm just going to select that tessellated poly mesh surface, go back to File, and I'll select Save Selected, and let's make this version 1. Pick the STL file format or the OBJ file format, whatever works best for your application. So I'll pick the STL, and you save it, and you're done. So now I know exactly what I'm going to get when I open up that file. Okay, so that's the easiest, quickest method that you can use. The only downside from using the poly mesh from NURBS is it's not going to stitch or create a watertight geometry necessarily. In this case, if your geometry is really good, it may be, but it's really not going to do the stitching process using this method. So if, for example, if you're going to send this out for a rapid prototype and not just another polygonal-based application, you may want to ensure that you have a watertight geometry. So let's delete this one and let's look at another tool. So right next to the polymesh from NURBS is a tool called Advanced Tessellation. So I'll pick that. I'll pick the same surface. Now this one will not use your view tessellation, but you have some other parameters that you can use that are really easy just to get something nice pretty simply. So what I normally do is the first one I check is the option for the maximum edge length. Because you can see I have some really big triangles that are being created. So I really want to limit the size of those triangles to capture some more detail. So I'm going to click on max edge length. By default, it's going to use a value of 2. So if I want to make this even tighter or finer, I can move this down to 1. So you can see it's a little bit tighter. So maybe I'll even bump this down even more, say 0.3. Okay, so that's a little bit tighter. And you can also set the minimum edge length. So if it's creating some bigger sections in some areas and some really tiny fine details in some other areas, you can choose the minimum edge length. And I'm going to set that to 0.1. You can also control the maximum aspect ratio. So if you look at some of these triangles, what this is going to do is this is going to, if you have some really long skinny sections, you can control that to make it a little bit more uniform. So I'm going to select that one and max ratio, let's say 1, and it'll keep everything pretty squared up if I do that. Okay. So this is getting a little more similar to using the visualization tessellation. So if you're happy with that, you can just keep playing with this until you're happy with it. Once you're happy with it, then all you need to do is go back, same process we used before, and choose Save As. We'll call this version 2. Use the STL or again the OBJ file format in version 9.0. Click Save and you're all done. Just hit OK with those parameters, and again you're going to know exactly what you're going to get. There's no guesswork, and you can use everything on screen to be sure you're going to get some useful geometry to move forward with. So I hope that helps, and let us know if you have any questions or comments.